The late autumn sun was softly streaming through the windows of the Martin family's old house, filling the modest living room with warm light. Anna sat on the worn sofa, holding the invitation to her wedding. The snow-white sheet with gold embossing contrasted sharply with the simplicity of her surroundings. This house, with its old furniture and faded wallpaper, felt not only modest, but also cozy, accumulated over many years of labor. Her mother, Emma, approached Anna with a caring smile, but a look of concern in her eyes. She sat down next to her and quietly asked, "Darling, are you sure you want to do this? The Grace family is nothing like us. Do you remember how they looked at us that time?" Anna nodded sadly, remembering the cold reception her fiancé Mark's parents had given her. Their looks had been stern, evaluative, full of judgment. But Mark was different. He loved her genuinely, for her gentleness and strength. "Mom, Mark is not like his parents. He sees me as a person, not a status," Anna said, though there was a shadow of doubt in her voice. The door to the old house creaked open and Anna's father, Robert, walked in. His face was tired, his skin calloused from years of working in the factory. Taking off his worn work beret, he asked quietly, "What do the Grays say?" Anna felt her heart clench. "Father," she stammered, catching the change in his gaze. "Is something wrong?" Robert sat down heavily in an old chair, avoiding her eyes. "Today at the factory, Mr. Grace called me into the office," he began, his voice trembling. "Said if you married Mark, I'd be fired." The room fell into a heavy silence. Anna felt the ground slipping from under her feet. The gap between her world and that of the Grace family suddenly became frighteningly real. "They can't do this," she whispered, overwhelmed by anger and helplessness. Emma gripped her husband's hand tightly, her eyes glistening with determination. "We'll find a way out, we always have," she said confidently. But Anna, looking at the shining invitation sheet, felt her dreams begin to seem like a mockery of her life. She vowed that nothing would interfere with her happiness, not even realizing what trials lay ahead. The day Anna first met Mark was fateful. She was working in a small flower store when he walked in, tall, with a deep gaze and a warm smile. He had come to pick up a bouquet for his mother, but when he met her gaze, he froze for a moment. "Hi, I'm Mark," he said, extending his hand. "Do you work here?" "Yes," she answered, lowering her eyes in embarrassment. From that day on, he came in every week, buying flowers and finding reasons to talk. He loved hearing her stories about flowers and laughing with her. He often joked that it was only because of her that he had learned to love flowers. Their meetings became regular. In each conversation they discovered something new in each other. Mark talked about his strict father and about a life where money decided everything. He was different, not like his family, for whom social status was more important than anything else. Anna admired his sincerity. One day, when they were walking in the park, Mark suddenly stopped, took her hands and said quietly, "Anna, I know we are from different worlds, but I want to be with you no matter what." Her heart sank. She realized that these words were not just a declaration of love, but a promise that their feelings would withstand any test. Anna remembered the evening when Mark had first invited her to dinner at a cozy cafe on the outskirts of town. At a table by the window, they had a long talk about life, dreams, and the future. Mark talked about his childhood, how he was always burdened by his father's strictness and his mother's desire to control his every move. "My mother thinks I should marry the daughter of her business partner," Mark admitted, his eyes downcast. "But I can never be happy with someone I don't love." These words penetrated Anna's heart, filling her with warmth and hope. She sensed that they had a rough road ahead of them, but she believed in the strength of their love. One evening Anna returned home after her shift at the flower store. In the living room, her parents were sitting at an old wooden table. Robert was concentrating on a piece of paper, and Emma was trying to remain calm. "Mom, Dad, what's wrong?" Anna asked worriedly, approaching them. Robert looked up at her tiredly. "It's a letter from the Grace family," he said slowly. "They are inviting us to dinner at their estate." Anna froze, feeling her heart beat harder. An invitation to the Gray's house could mean anything. Mark said he wanted us to meet his parents, she mumbled, trying to control her excitement. But the look on her parents' faces left no doubt that they feared something bad. The next evening, the Martin family headed for the stately gates of Grace Manor. The huge mansion glowed with lights, emphasizing its luxury and inaccessibility. Anna felt out of place, but tried to stay confident for her parents' sake. When they entered the room with its high ceilings, glittering chandeliers, and expensive carpets, they noticed Mark at once. His face lit up with joy when he saw Anna, but there was anxiety in his gaze. His parents, Lady Victoria and Lord Henry Grace, stood beside him. Victoria, a statuesque woman with a cold gaze, held her head high, radiating icy majesty. Henry, tall and serious, looked at the Martins with contemptuous detachment. "Anna, how nice to finally meet you," Victoria said with a strained smile. "Mark has told me a lot about you." Anna smiled politely, though there was a growing uneasiness in her chest. Soon the cold small talk was interrupted by Victoria's words. "We are gathered here to discuss the future." Her gaze stopped on Mark. "It concerns not only you, but our entire family." Henry leaned forward, his voice sounding like a sentence. "Mark, you must realize that this marriage will have serious consequences. We cannot allow our name to be associated with," he paused, casting a judgmental glance at the Martins, "with people of lower status." Mark stood up, his hands clenched into fists, but his voice remained firm. "Father, I have already made my choice. I love Anna and I will stay with her, despite all your threats." Victoria turned away, and anger flashed in Henry's eyes. "If you insist on this, forget about the inheritance, our support, everything we've done for you," he said coldly. There was silence. Anna felt her breathing become labored. Mark stood in front of her, his gaze full of determination and love. When dinner was over and the Marins left the mansion, Anna couldn't hold back her tears. Everything seemed to crumble in an instant. But despite this, she felt that their love was worth every obstacle. In the evening, alone in her room, Anna sat by the window, looking out at the moonlight. Her thoughts were filled with anxiety and doubt. She didn't want her family to suffer because of her, but giving up Mark seemed unbearable. There was a quiet knock at the door. It was Emma. She came in and sat down next to her, putting her arm around her daughter. "We'll get through this, Anna. Your happiness comes first," she said softly. Anna couldn't bear it, the tears she had been holding back all day came in floods. "Mommy, I don't want you and Daddy to suffer, but I love Mark. What if we can't win?" Emma squeezed her hand tightly. "True love always faces challenges. But you are strong, my girl. And you're not alone. We are together." Her mother's words penetrated Anna's heart, giving her hope. She realized that their struggle was just beginning, but now she had the support of her family. Meanwhile, at Grace Manor, Lord Henry and Lady Victoria were discussing how to stop Mark. The atmosphere in the drawing room was tense. Henry stood at the window, looking out into the night darkness. "He won't listen to us, Victoria," he said grimly. "Our son has decided to go against the family." Victoria lifted her chin coldly. "Then the only thing left for us to do is to show who is really in control here." With those words, they began to construct a new plan that was going to break Mark and Anna's bond once and for all. A few days had passed since the dinner at the Grace Manor. Anna could feel the anxiety growing stronger each day. Mark called her every night, assuring her that everything would be okay, but the tension in his voice was impossible to hide. One evening, on her way home from work, Anna noticed her friend Sarah waiting for her at the front door with a worried look. "Anna," she began with concern in her voice, "I hear that there is a serious conflict brewing between you and the Grace family. It is said that their influence extends far beyond the city." Anna nodded, feeling a growing unease. "It's true, Sar. They would do anything to keep Mark and me apart. But I will not back down," she said firmly. Sarah squeezed her hand. "You've always been strong, but be careful. The Greys are dangerous people, they are not used to losing. Anna thanked her friend for her support, but her heart clenched with fear for her family. That evening, walking home along a narrow path through the park, Anna felt someone walking toward her. In the moonlight, she recognized Mark. His face was tense and his eyes were concerned. "Anna, we need to talk," he said quietly, taking her hands in his. "What's wrong?" she asked anxiously. "My parents have gone too far," Mark admitted. "My father is using all his connections to sabotage our wedding. He has already threatened to fire your father and convince the other factory owners not to hire him." Anna stared at him in shock. "They have no right to do that," she exclaimed bitterly. "It's not fair." "I know," Mark sighed heavily. "But they won't stop. Father wants to separate us at any cost." Gathering her courage, Anna replied. "We knew it would be hard, Mark. But I won't give up. We'll find a way out." "I've already talked to a lawyer," Mark said. "He's agreed to help protect your family's rights. It may take a while, but we'll fight." Mark's words filled her with renewed determination. They were together and that gave her hope. Back at Grace Manor, tensions had reached a fever pitch. Victoria stood by the fireplace, watching the flickering flames. Henry, stern and silent, was reading the newspaper, but his mind was clearly on something else. "He won't give up, Victoria," he said grimly, putting the paper down. "Mark has always been stubborn." "Then we must act faster," Victoria said coldly. "If he won't give up this girl, we'll make her go away on her own." Henry nodded in agreement. Their plan was getting tougher and more dangerous. The next day Anna received bad news. Her father had indeed been fired from the factory. This was a severe blow to the family, for now they had lost their only source of income. They had carried out their threat, Anna said bitterly as her mother sadly laid the dismissal letter on the table. "We have to fight," Mark said confidently as he appeared on the doorstep. "I've already applied for a court hearing. We are not alone, our lawyer is sure that the case can be won." Anna clung to Mark, feeling the support and strength coming from him. Despite all the threats, he wouldn't give up. Meanwhile, Henry and Victoria continued scheming. Mr. Randolph, a longtime business partner of the Greys and known for his ruthlessness, entered their office. "We have a problem," Henry said dryly. "Mark's not complying. We have to increase the pressure on the Martins." Randolph nodded, promising to settle the matter. "Leave it to me. I'll make them want to leave town on their own." The Greys knew they were going to extreme measures, but they believed that victory justified any means. Several weeks passed, full of tension and struggle. The court case was gaining momentum, and rumors of the conflict between the Greys and the Martins were spreading through the city. People were divided into two camps, some supported Anna and Mark, while others feared the wrath of the powerful family. One morning Anna received an unexpected letter from Mark asking to meet at their favorite park. He wrote that he had found an important decision and wanted to talk to her alone. When she arrived at the familiar clearing, Mark was already waiting for her under a large oak tree. His face was focused, but there was hope in his eyes. "Anna," he began, taking her hands in his. "I've decided to leave my family. If necessary, I will give up everything to be with you." Her eyes filled with tears. "Would you do that for me?" she whispered. "For us," Mark answered firmly. "We'll start from scratch, but we'll be together." Anna threw herself on his neck, realizing that together they would cope with all the trials. Their journey to freedom was just beginning. Mark's decision to leave his family was a turning point. He knew that breaking up with his parents would mean losing everything, his inheritance, his connections, and his usual life of luxury. But in his heart was Anna, and for her sake he was ready for any hardship. Soon Mark announced his decision officially. The entire Grace family gathered in the manor's huge living room. Victoria sat with a stony expression, while Henry stood by the fireplace, nervously clutching a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Mark, you can still change your mind," Victoria said coldly, "but if you leave now, there's no turning back." Mark met her icy gaze. I'm not going back. I love Anna and I chose my life for myself. Your money and influence mean nothing to me anymore. Henry turned sharply toward his son. You will regret this, he said through gritted teeth. Life without our support will be harder than you think. Mark stood up to this onslaught, though he felt his insides tearing apart. He realized that he was losing not only his father and mother, but everything that had once been part of his world. My decision is final, he said firmly, heading for the exit. Victoria, pale, remained silent, but her gaze burned with implacability. That same night, she decided to go even further. Mark moved in with Anna. The Martins' home was modest but warm. Robert and Emma received Mark with restraint but did not push him away. They could see that their daughter was truly happy around him. Welcome, son, Robert said after a short pause, extending his hand. Mark was relieved to shake it, feeling a huge weight lifted off his shoulders. He knew there would be many challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time he felt like part of a real family. Despite their best efforts, the Greys were not about to give up. A few weeks later, Anna received a strange letter from an unknown sender. It contained only one sentence: you can still save your family if you leave Mark. Anna's heart clenched with fear. She realized this was a new attempt to intimidate her. But instead of panic, she felt a wave of anger. The Greys could threaten all they wanted, but she wasn't going to back down anymore. This letter doesn't change anything, she told Mark, squeezing his hand. We'll keep fighting. Mark nodded, but in the back of his mind the anxiety wouldn't let go. He knew what his parents were capable of. Meanwhile, Victoria continued to make a new plan. She realized that the usual threats weren't working, so she decided to strike elsewhere. Turning to her old business partners, she set in motion a chain of machinations aimed at the complete ruin of the Martin family. Destroy their business, she ordered one of her confidants. Let them have nothing. But this time Victoria miscalculated. The brutal actions drew the attention of the police. Mark's lawyer went to the prosecutor's office, presenting evidence of pressure and threats from the Greys. An official investigation was launched. A few days later, a police officer unexpectedly showed up at the Martins' home. In his hands was a summons for Victoria Grace. The news instantly traveled around town, causing quite a scandal. They're finally caught! Mark exclaimed, barely able to contain his joy. But Anna knew this was only the beginning. The Greys were too strong to give up so easily. The next day, the police arrived at the Greys' estate. Victoria was detained right at the gate of the house, much to her surprise. Henry, used to thinking himself invulnerable, was furious, but there was nothing he could do. It's a misunderstanding, he shouted as the policeman handcuffed Victoria's hands. You will regret this. But this time his words had no force. Mark and Anna waited anxiously for news. When their lawyer informed them that Victoria was in custody, they exhaled with relief, but realized that the fight was not over. We've won one battle, but the war isn't over, Mark said gravely. My father will go to the end. Anna hugged him, feeling his body tense with anxiety and fatigue. We'll make it through. Together, she whispered. Her confidence gave him strength. For the first time in a long time, Mark believed that their love could withstand any challenge. After Victoria Grace's arrest, there had been a lot of discussion in town. No one could believe that one of the most powerful families was involved in such a high-profile scandal. News of her arrest quickly spread through the local papers, and reporters were on duty at the gates of the Grace estate, hoping for more details. Anna and Mark tried to stay out of the fuss, focusing on protecting their family. The calm didn't last long, however. Soon, their lawyer broke the unpleasant news. Henry Grace isn't giving up, he said, setting aside a thick file folder. He's using his connections to get his wife out of jail and keep the case quiet. We have to move fast. Mark clenched his fists. He knew his father would never admit defeat. What can we do? Anna asked. We have one advantage, Victoria's testimony, answered the lawyer. If she decided to cooperate with the police, her testimony would be key to the investigation. It could destroy Henry's entire scheme. Mark remained silent, digesting what he'd heard. Asking his mother for help seemed impossible to him after everything that had happened. But he realized it was their only chance. The next day, Mark and Anna went to the detention center where Victoria was being held. They received permission for a brief meeting. The visiting room was cold and uncomfortable. Anna squeezed Mark's hand, trying to convey her support for him. The door opened and Victoria was led in under escort. Despite her tired appearance, her posture remained proud. "What do you want?" she asked coldly, sitting down across from him. Mark looked at his mother for a long time before he spoke. "We came to ask for your help," he said firmly. "Cooperate with the investigation. It's the only way to avoid the worst." Victoria glanced at him glumly. "You want me to betray my husband?" Her voice trembled with restrained emotion. "He's already betrayed you, Mom," Mark said quietly. "He's only interested in money and power. If you keep protecting him, you'll lose everything." Her son's words hit Victoria harder than she'd expected. She remembered the years she'd spent maintaining the facade of a perfect family and realized that her life had long ago become a cold, empty spectacle. Her gaze softened. "If I agree," she began, but stopped talking, unable to finish her sentence. Anna leaned toward her. "This is your chance to right the wrongs. For Mark's sake. And for yourself." Victoria sat in thought for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll testify." From that day on, the investigation gathered momentum. Victoria began to cooperate with the police, uncovering schemes Henry had been building for years. Her testimony was a real blow to the Greys' criminal network. Henry was furious when he learned of his wife's betrayal. He vowed revenge, but his influence could no longer save him as new evidence of his crimes emerged every day. A few weeks later, the first trial took place. The hall was crowded with journalists, lawyers, and witnesses. Anna and Mark sat in the front row, holding hands tightly. As Victoria was led into the hall, escorted by a guard, she met her son's gaze for a moment. There was remorse in her eyes, and a determination to follow through. The trial lasted for hours. The accusations came one after another: financial fraud, bribes, illegal transactions. Victoria calmly answered the judge's questions, confirming every detail. When the time came for the preliminary verdict, the hall froze in tense anticipation. The judge stood up, setting aside the papers. "The court finds Henry Grace guilty on all charges. He is sentenced to indefinite imprisonment pending a full investigation of his criminal activities." A muffled murmur rippled through the hall. Anna felt a great weight lifted from her shoulders. She turned to Mark, tears of relief glistening in his eyes. After the trial, Anna and Mark walked outside, feeling like they could breathe freely for the first time in a long time. The breeze blew pleasantly against their faces, and the bright sun lit up the streets of the city that had become their home. "Is this the end?" Anna asked, still not believing that the nightmare was over. Mark put his arm around her shoulders. "It's the beginning," he answered with a warm smile. "Our new, real future." They walked away, leaving the shadow of the past behind them. But there was a path ahead of them, full of new hopes and possibilities. It had been months since Henry Grace had been found guilty. His conviction had become a sensation that had rocked the whole town. But for Anna and Mark, it was more than just an event, it was the victory they'd been seeking for so long. Life began to get better. Mark took a job with a small engineering company, starting from scratch with no family support. Anna continued to work at the flower store, which was now thriving thanks to the help of loyal customers. Their home was small but cozy, filled with laughter and warm moments. One morning Anna received an unexpected letter. It contained official notice: the judge had made a final decision on Henry Grace's sentence. He was given 20 years in prison for multiple offenses. It was the final verdict that put an end to this dark story. "We're free," Anna whispered, clutching the letter in her hands. Mark hugged her, feeling their hearts finally fill with relief. Despite the completion of the case, the past sometimes reminded them of themselves. There were still rumors in town, and some people looked at them with suspicion. However, Anna and Mark had learned to ignore it. Their love grew stronger and their future became brighter. Soon Mark made Anna an unexpected proposal, to leave the city and start from scratch. "We will always be associated with the past here," he said. "We deserve a new home where no one will know our history." Anna thought about it for a long time, but finally agreed. They decided to move to a small seaside town where they could start a new life, far away from everything that had happened. And so, a few weeks later, Anna and Mark stood on the threshold of their new home. It was a cozy cottage overlooking the sea, surrounded by a flowering garden. For the first time in a long time they felt safe. "Welcome home," Mark said with a smile as he opened the door. Anna stepped inside, feeling her heart fill with joy. The house was simple, but warm. The large windows let in the sunlight, and the aroma of fresh coffee was already wafting from the kitchen. Mark had prepared everything in advance. "You've thought of everything," she said in surprise. "I wanted this day to be the beginning of a new chapter," he answered, hugging her. Anna went up to the second floor where there was a spacious bedroom with a balcony overlooking the ocean. The view was mesmerizing, the endless sea seemed a symbol of their freedom. "We'll build something of our own here," she said quietly, enjoying the silence, broken only by the sound of the waves. Several months passed. Anna and Mark set up their new home, bringing some of their dreams into it. Mark found a job at an engineering firm nearby, and Anna opened her own little flower shop, which she named Second Breath. The shop quickly became popular with the locals. Anna loved decorating it with fresh flowers and hosting morning tea parties with regular customers, telling stories about each bouquet. One day, as she was closing up store, a little girl approached her with a bouquet of daisies in her hands. "These are for you," she said with a shy smile. "Mommy said you bring beauty to the town." Anna took the flowers, feeling tears come to her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt that she was part of a new world where she was valued not for her status, but for her soul. That evening, Mark returned from work earlier than usual. His eyes shone with joy, and Anna immediately realized that something important had happened. "I have a surprise for you," he said with a smile, holding a small key with a tag. Anna looked at him in surprise. "What is it?" she asked, not holding back her excitement. "It's the key to the little house by the sea that I bought for your shop," Mark explained. "Now you will have more space and you can create a real dream garden." Anna threw herself around his neck, unable to contain her emotions. "You always think of me," she whispered, hugging him tightly. Years passed. The house by the sea became for Anna and Mark not just a place, but a symbol of their new life. They built a cozy, happy future, full of love and hope. Anna sometimes remembered the past, but now they were only distant shadows that could not overshadow their real history. She learned to appreciate every moment, to believe in the light and go forward despite all obstacles. They were no longer afraid of the future, because now they had their own world, where the main things were love, honesty, and faith in the best. As the years passed, Anna and Mark's life was filled with happy moments. Their home by the sea became a quiet harbor where peace and love reigned. Anna developed her flower shop, Second Breath, which became a favorite place for the people of the city. Mark was promoted at work and his projects at an engineering firm began to succeed. But the most important event occurred one sunny spring day when Anna happily informed Mark that they were expecting a baby. This news became a real blessing, illuminating their lives with new meaning. The waiting time flew by. Anna tried to spend more time in the garden, tending to the flowers that were now her second family. Her tummy was rounding out and with each passing month she and Mark were getting more and more ready to meet the new member of their family. "What do you think he'll be?" Anna asked one evening, sitting on the veranda and watching the sunset. Mark put his arm around her and kissed her softly on the temple. "He's going to be amazing, just like his mom," he replied quietly. Anna smiled, feeling their hearts beating in unison. The long-awaited day had come. One June night Anna was awakened by the first contractions. Mark, despite his excitement, managed to quickly pack and drive her to the nearest hospital. After hours of waiting, a baby boy came into their lives, whom they named Evan. Anna held her son in her arms for the first time and felt unprecedented happiness. His tiny fingers clenched around her hand and the light of new life was reflected in his eyes. "Welcome to the world, my little one," she whispered, holding him to her chest. Mark sat beside her, not taking his eyes off them both. In that moment he realized that everything they had been through was worth it coming to this new chapter. Life at the house by the sea had changed with Evan's arrival. Now every day was filled with laughter and children's antics. Anna was teaching her son to plant flowers in the garden, and Mark was building a wooden swing for him under the big oak tree. "Daddy, look, I'm flying!" Evan shouted merrily, swinging higher and higher. Mark laughed with him, and Anna watched, enjoying every second of this simple happiness. Several years passed. Evan grew up to be an inquisitive and kind boy. He loved helping his mother in the flower shop and listened with interest to the stories she told about flowers and stars. One evening when the whole family was sitting on the veranda under the starry sky, Evan suddenly asked, "Mom, Dad, have you always been this happy?" Anna and Mark looked at each other, remembering all the hardships they had been through. "No, baby," Anna answered softly. "We've come a long way before we found our home and found each other. But you know what the most important thing is?" Evan opened his eyes wide. "What?" "We always believed in the best, even when it was hard," Mark added, hugging his wife. "And that faith made us a family." Evan nodded gravely, as if memorizing those words. "So you always have to have faith?" he asked. "Yes, always," Anna confirmed, pulling him close to her. "Even after the darkest night there is a dawn." The years went on. Evan grew up, becoming a young dreamer with a good heart and a strong character. One day he told his parents that he wanted to study botany so he could help his mother in the shop and discover new kinds of flowers. Anna hugged him proudly, feeling her heart fill with warmth. Mark, holding back his emotions, patted his son on the shoulder. "You will be a great botanist," he said, "because you have a love for nature and a desire to create." Evan smiled, realizing that his family would always be there for him, supporting him in every endeavor. A few more years passed. Anna, Mark and Evan had become an integral part of their town. Their home by the sea was still filled with love, laughter, and warmth. The garden bloomed with lush colors, and there were always happy voices of customers around the flower shop. One day, on Anna's birthday, Mark gave her an unusual bouquet of white roses and delicate violets, the very flowers she loved so much. "To the new chapter of our lives," he said quietly, looking into her eyes. Anna, unable to hold back her tears, pressed the bouquet to her chest. "Thank you for always being there for me," she whispered. Mark smiled, hugging her as if time had stopped. "I always will be," he said firmly. "Forever." Their story continued, intertwined with new dreams, smiles and memories. The house by the sea became a place where the past was only a distant echo and the present was the light they created together. Years passed, filled with happiness, labor, and new memories. Evan went to university, choosing botany, and began to develop his own research on rare plants. Mark and Anna proudly followed his progress, supporting him every step of the way. Second Breath Flower Shop flourished, becoming a symbol of hope and renewal for the residents of their coastal town. Anna was known for her kindness and her ability to turn each bouquet into a small work of art. Mark was promoted at work, becoming the chief engineer for a major green home project. Despite his busy schedule, he always made time for his family. Every evening they had dinner together, sharing the day's events and making plans for the future. One fall day, as the leaves began to turn golden, Anna and Mark decided to have a family picnic by the sea. They spread a blanket on the grass next to the beach and enjoyed the soft sound of the waves. Evan returned from university for the weekend, delighting his parents with his presence. What do you think our garden will be like in 10 years? Evan asked, looking at the sunset. Anna smiled, imagining the lush flowering bushes and new kinds of plants they would plant. I think it will be even more beautiful, she said. Especially if you help grow it. Of course. Evan replied enthusiastically. I already have some ideas for new flower beds. Mark laughed. I'm sure our garden will soon become the most beautiful landmark in town. These warm moments seemed perfect, as if nothing could disturb their harmony. But life often presents unexpected challenges. In winter, when the city was covered with a shroud of snow, Anna felt ill. The first signs of indisposition seemed insignificant, but soon it became clear that the matter was serious. Mark insisted that she see a doctor. After several examinations, doctors diagnosed her with a rare autoimmune disease that requires complex treatment. The news came as a shock to the whole family. We'll get through this, Mark said firmly, squeezing Anna's hands in his. We've been through so much already. I won't let you give up. Evan came home from university to support his mother. He offered to set up a new greenhouse in the garden so Anna could do what she loved even when she felt weak. The garden has always been your source of strength, Mom, he said. And now it will support you. The greenhouse quickly became a blooming oasis. Mark had built it with his own hands, and Evan had helped plant dozens of species of flowers that delighted the eye even on the coldest days. Anna spent hours tending to the plants and forgetting about the pain. The family bonded even stronger. Every day they found new reasons for joy, dinners together, walks along the shore, stories about the past years. One evening, when the garden was illuminated by the soft light of the lanterns, Anna sat on an old swing, admiring the night sky. Mark came up to her and, as in those distant times, quietly embraced her. You are the strongest woman I know, he whispered. And you'll get through this. Anna smiled, feeling the genuine confidence in his words. You know, she said quietly, even if I could change something in the past, I'd leave it the way it is. All our trials have brought us here, to this moment. Treatment proved long and difficult, but thanks to her family's support and perseverance, Anna gradually began to recover. Doctors noted that her condition had stabilized and her chances for a full recovery had increased. When spring returned, the Martins' garden bloomed like never before. Every flower, every leaf seemed a symbol of life, rebirth and hope. Several years passed. Evan finished his studies and returned to his hometown, determined to stay close to his family. He opened his own botanical center, which quickly became well known in the area for its unique projects to preserve rare plant species. Anna and Mark enjoyed a quiet, measured life. Their garden became even larger and more beautiful, and the flower shop continued to delight the residents. One summer evening, the family gathered again on the veranda outside the house. Evan was talking with a smile about the new plans for the expansion of their botanical center, and Anna was preparing mint tea from her garden. You know, Evan began, looking at his parents, I've always thought that our home is more than just a place. It's part of our history, our fulcrum. Anna and Mark looked at each other with warm smiles. You're right, Mark agreed. Our home is what we have created together. Anna nodded, feeling her heart fill with gratitude. And the beautiful thing is that our story continues, she added. Every day we write a new chapter. That evening, the garden shone in the moonlight and the air was filled with the scent of flowers. The past was but a distant memory, and ahead was a world full of love, hope and endless possibilities. A few more years passed. The life of the Martin family flowed in the usual rhythm, filled with warmth, love and new achievements. Evan continued to develop his botanical center, creating unique collections of rare plants. His research attracted the attention of scientists from all over the world. The Second Breath Flower Shop remained the heart of the town. Anna, having recovered from her illness, took up her favorite business again. Together with Mark, they tended the garden, which had become a true work of art. One fall evening Evan came to his parents with important news. His face was glowing with excitement. Mom, Dad, he began, I want you to be the first to know. Anna and Mark were alert, waiting for him to continue. "I'm proposing to Emily," he announced with a smile. "I love her and I can't imagine my life without her." Anna jumped up from her seat in joy and hugged her son. Mark shook his hand with pride in his eyes. "You made the right choice, son," he said. "Emily is a wonderful girl. We always dreamed that you would find your happiness." The wedding took place in spring, when the garden was in full bloom. Everything was decorated with fresh flowers from Anna's shop. Under an arch of white roses, Evan and Emily exchanged vows of love and fidelity. Mark performed the ceremony in person, not hiding his excitement. "Today we're not just celebrating the beginning of a new family," he said as he looked at his son and his bride. "We are celebrating the continuation of our story, made even more beautiful by your love." Tears of joy glistened in Anna's eyes as she watched her son, standing next to Emily, begin his own journey in life. After the wedding, Evan and Emily decided to stay in the city, building a home near the botanical center. The Martins' garden merged with the new gardens they created together, forming a single space full of beauty and life. Everything seemed perfect, but soon fate decided to test them again. One night a violent thunderstorm erupted. Hurricane-force winds and torrential rain hit the city, causing serious damage. Evan's botanical center was at the center of the elements. By morning, it was clear that many greenhouses had been destroyed. Evan stood in despair in the middle of the devastated garden, feeling all his hard work threatened. "We'll rebuild everything," Emily said firmly, squeezing his hand. "This isn't the end." Soon Anna and Mark joined them. Together with volunteers from the city, they began the work of rebuilding the center. "We've started from scratch more than once," Mark said, hammering in new poles for the greenhouse. "We can do it again." Those words inspired Evan. He felt the same old fire in him. The work lasted for months, but in time, the botanical center became again what Evan had envisioned. What's more, it became even better after the renovation. The city supported the project, and soon the center became a major research institute, bringing together scientists and nature enthusiasts. A year after the center was rebuilt, Anna, Mark, Evan and Emily gathered again in the beloved garden for a family dinner. The summer evening was quiet and warm, and the scents of flowers filled the air. Evan raised his wine glass, smiling. "To a family that always stays close, no matter what," he said. "To the love that makes us stronger," Anna added, hugging Mark. At that moment they realized that they had created not just a house, but a whole world where love, hope and faith in the best ruled. The garden shone with all its colors, as if sharing their joy. Their story continued, promising many more happy chapters ahead. A few years passed. The life of the Martin family became a symbol of unity, love and overcoming. Their home by the sea, surrounded by gardens, became a place that everyone who had ever been there wanted to return to. The Evan Botanical Center flourished, attracting researchers from all over the world. It became a scientific and educational center where young scientists developed new ecological projects. Emily, his faithful companion, helped run it, inspiring the team with her energy and creativity. Anna continued to run the Second Breath flower shop, which became a famous landmark. Her bouquets were more than just flowers, they were messages of love, hope and fortitude. Mark, after taking a well-deserved retirement, devoted himself to creating unique landscape designs for city parks. His creations became places where people could relax and enjoy nature. One summer evening, the entire family gathered in the Martins' garden. Outdoor tables were laden with homemade treats and the scent of flowers wafted around. In the center of the table stood a large bouquet of white roses, the same roses that had once been the symbol of Anna and Mark's love. "Today is a special day," Mark began, raising his glass. "We've been together for so many years. We've been through hardships, joys and changes, but we've always stayed close." Anna gently took his hand, feeling the memories come alive in her heart. "It's because of you," she added, smiling. "You always believed in us." "And I've always believed in you," Mark replied quietly. After dinner, Evan stepped forward, holding an envelope. His eyes shone with excitement. "We have news," he began, putting his arm around Emily. "We're expecting a baby." Laughter and cheers filled the garden. Anna and Mark rushed to hug their son and daughter-in-law, not hiding their tears of happiness. "You have given us the greatest happiness," said Anna, looking at Emily. "Now we can feel what it is like to be parents again." Months flew by waiting for the new member of the family. The whole garden was decorated with flowers for his arrival. Anna had lovingly prepared a corner of Evan and Emily's home, decorating it with white roses and delicate peonies. The day everyone had been waiting for arrived. A little girl with bright star-like eyes was born in a small coastal hospital. Evan named her Lily after her grandmother, who had always believed in the power of flowers and nature. Anna held her granddaughter in her arms for the first time and her heart overflowed with light. "Welcome to the world, Lilia," she whispered, feeling past, present and future come together in a single moment. Years passed. Lily grew up to be a bright, inquisitive girl. She spent a lot of time in the gardens, helping her grandmother tend the flowers and listening to stories about each one. Her favorites were white roses, like the ones her grandparents had at their wedding. Evan and Emily were proud of their daughter, who showed a love of nature from an early age. The Martins' garden became her magical world, full of mystery and wonder. One day Lilia asked Anna, "Grandma, how did you know this place was our home?" Anna smiled as she looked at the blooming garden. "Home is not just a place," she replied. "It's the people who make it special. It's the love that binds us together despite all the hardships." Lilia thought for a moment, then nodded gravely. "So home is always with us, even when we are far away?" Anna hugged her granddaughter, feeling the circle of life closing. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "Home is where love lives." Many years passed. The house by the sea, surrounded by flowering gardens, remained a symbol of family, love and hope. Every flower bed, every tree held memories of happy days, trials and triumphs. The story of the Martins became a legend, a tale of the power of love to overcome everything. And in the garden, white roses still bloomed, symbols of new life that continued in every petal, every dawn, and every new day. Thank you for watching this story to the end. It wasn't easy, but I hope you found something in it for you, a lesson, encouragement, or just a good story. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Your comments and thoughts are very important to me, so be sure to leave them below. I try to create sincere and emotional stories, but if I made a mistake somewhere or something could have been done better, I apologize. Thank you for your time and attention. See you in the next videos.